Hey, everybody, welcome back to the I Play 2 podcast. I'm your host, Rob Adler. This week, Houston Cougars baseball player Tyler Cox joins the show. In 2019, while attending Harvard Westlake High School in California, he played in the championship game of the USA Baseball National High School Invitational. In 2022 at Dartmouth, Tyler was the Ivy League Rookie of the Year, and he won the Blair Bat Award with an eye-popping .464 average in conference play. This year, to conclude his Big 12 regular season, Tyler had 13 hits over his final 9 games. His father, Richard Cox, is a Tony Award-nominated actor who has also appeared in TV shows such as Remington Steele, Law and Order, and Grey's Anatomy. Tyler, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Stoked to be here.
Thank you for being here, man. I appreciate it. How was the Big 12 tournament for you?
I've stepped onto a lot of fields and taken in the atmosphere and structure of the stadium, and nothing quite hit me like when I walked out of the tunnel and looked at that brand new, I think, 4 or 5-year-old stadium at Globe Life Field. I mean, that was absolutely breathtaking. The ground balls were like butter on that surface. It was my first time playing in a dome, too. So it was nice to have the climate control here, and as we're getting into the summer months of Texas pretty soon. But it was super awesome. It felt very professional, and everyone kind of just rose to the occasion in the spotlight, and it was just super fun.
Because it was your first time playing in a dome, was there anything that you had to make in terms of adjustments from playing outside to playing inside?
Surprisingly not, now that I think about it. I think as you get older and you're playing against some of these hitters that are bigger and stronger, you get that big league pop-up that goes super high in the air on the infield a few times. I will say in the dome, I might have lost one. I quickly picked it back up with my eyes, but not many adjustments. It seemed like a seamless transition, honestly. Other than some of those fly balls getting a little caught up there and being a little harder to see, it was a seamless transition. And props to the Big 12 for putting that on and making that happen for us and creating that opportunity for us that we'll remember for a while now.
In terms of the size of the stadium, just because there's the opportunity to have so many more people there, was there any wow factor of playing in front of more people?
Yeah, to an extent. When you're in big games like that, it's super important to shrink the moment and shrink the size of things, as baseball is a very mentally challenging sport that forces you to have a very strong mental game and regulate yourself when moments get too big, and vice versa when the game's getting out of hand, to kind of make sure you're still engaged and stuff, kind of going both ways. But for most players, it should really fuel you when you see more people out there. It should give you maybe some more of those pregame jitters in a good way. It should give you a little more motivation and really play for your team. For me, it just fueled me a little bit more and really put our eyes on the prize as a team. And we were able to get one win there, and it was super fun.
So you're a California guy who went to Dartmouth and has ended up in Houston. That's kind of a rather large triangle. How did you end up making it from California to Dartmouth and now to Texas?
Out of high school in Los Angeles, kind of where I was born and raised, I really wanted to play a smart brand of baseball, if that made sense. I was fortunate at my high school at Harvard Westlake. We were incredibly well coached and learning about so many nuances of the game. That kind of just became something I wanted to do. And I enjoyed playing a cerebral brand of baseball. Maybe playing with some guys that weren't the shiny objects or the sharpest tools in the shed, but playing a gritty, smart brand of baseball. And so I kind of wanted to go a little bit more down that academic route early on when I was in high school. And you go through the recruiting process, and I ended up finding a home in Hanover, New Hampshire, which is not Los Angeles and is not Houston, I'll tell you that. A lot of green trees, a lot of rivers and nature, and a whole bunch of fun stuff up there, like very small towny vibe to it. But it was super nice there. I really, really enjoyed my time at Dartmouth and playing Ivy League baseball, playing kind of in that more cerebral type of baseball in that conference. And I definitely had a really good time there for a few years, and I'll take away a lot from that. And then us Ivy Leaguers who had our seasons canceled in 2021, a lot of us were fortunate enough to get a grad year because you're not able to do your grad years at the Ivy League school. So the transfer portal is hot in the streets now, to put it lightly, in college sports. And so looking at the options, and I was fortunate to have a guy by the name of Justin Murray, who had graduated from Dartmouth in 2022, who did his 5th and 6th years at University of Houston. And so he kind of connected me with the coaches there. And I'll tell you, Houston is not Los Angeles, and it is not Hanover, New Hampshire, but this is my first year in Texas, honestly, really ever. So seeing all these big trucks and 48-ounce Dr. Peppers everywhere was a little bit of culture shock. But I absolutely love this year, man. Playing in the Big 12 and playing against these schools that have developed such a reputation over the years was just a super cool experience for me. Kind of playing that power forward ball and going to Arizona State and going to Oklahoma State and some of these facilities in these weird areas of the town that I otherwise would not have gone to. I'm just super fortunate that I had that opportunity and more down the line.
Well, how many of those 48-ounce Dr. Peppers have you had?
I'm not going to lie. Everyone kind of goes through their phase when they're sipping on a few too many sodas when they're 8 years old at a laser tag party or a bowling party. And kind of took a little break from soda, not really like intentionally, but I get here and everyone and their mom is drinking a Dr. Pepper with every meal. So I went a little crazy at the beginning, and then a few a week. And next thing you know, every time I'm getting Whataburger when we get home from a late night road trip, and it's one of the only things open. I got to compliment that with a DP. So maybe 48 ounces was not for me. I'm more of a 20-ounce guy maybe for that. I got to watch the sugar intake as an athlete.
You're already an adopted Texan because you went to Whataburger. You know where to go.
I've been hearing for years of my life, and I'd basically never been to Texas before this fall, other than like maybe connecting in a flight and it getting canceled and having to stay one night. But everyone's telling me about Whataburger is 20 times better than In-N-Out. And as a Californian, we always have to defend In-N-Out at all costs. The fries are terrible. Yeah, we hear that. We know they're so fresh. You can't let them sit for more than 3 minutes. That's why they might be not the best. But I felt like it was my duty as a Californian to really get the scoop on comparing and contrasting In-N-Out to Whataburger, being those regional specialists of two of the more high-profile states in our country. And I guess I came to the conclusion that it's apples and oranges. You got a very small menu in In-N-Out. They kind of do one thing really well. They got the burger, and there's not a whole lot of pizzazz you can add to it like you can at Whataburger. They got avocado, they got bacon. Whataburger is 24 hours, and they got an incredibly extensive menu. So when Texans come to me and they say, Whataburger is way better than In-N-Out, I'll qualify and I say, you can't really compare them. Both very good, though, I will say.
The original In-N-Out is a legend unto itself. It's a very unique place, and it's something that I know they franchised it, but that's a very hard thing to franchise in my view.
It is. And they do the classic burger, and they do it well. They don't add any fancy sauce or toppings that you see nowadays. They do one burger, and they do it well. And I've watched a couple documentaries on it, and they basically like sell some of their extra fat content from their meats to other fast food places. And so that kind of got me fired up in knowing that I'm kind of maybe eating one of the leaner fast food patties out there as an athlete. But it's an absolutely genius business model. And seeing those red palm trees on those cups is something that will stay with me for my whole life, having grown up and coming back from the 8 a.m. pool play game when I was about 9 years old and going to In-N-Out for lunch right after. Those are things I'll always remember for sure. But I'm always going to support In-N-Out. And if I hear any slander, I'll make sure to put my foot down and shout and support for sure.
Outside of burgers, are you a foodie in general?
Absolutely. I love food. One of my favorite things that I've started to do, at least kind of when I'm home in California, is to find these hole-in-the-wall-y or like street setup Mexican places. We're kind of in a breakfast burrito emporium in the San Fernando Valley that I live in Los Angeles. And so I've kind of tasked myself lately with finding some of the best breakfast burritos around my area. And it's honestly a little overwhelming when I was like, I'm going to try the best breakfast burritos around here. And just too many places. I'm never going to come to any conclusions there, but doing my best with that. And my mother loves to cook as well. She's very stimulated by making different kinds of cuisines, and she's never scared to try something new. So yeah, me and my mom have definitely connected over that. And that's something that as an athlete, making sure my calorie count is good. I would say that's one of my favorite forms of entertainment is food for sure.
Are you a chef in the kitchen or do you not have the time to do that?
It's a little bit harder when you're not at home and you don't have more than two burners and a few nicer pans to work with. But when I'm at home, at least during Thanksgiving break or over the summer, me and my mom will make a bunch of things. And it's a little bit harder when you're in the middle of your Big 12 season and we got to be hopping on flights to Manhattan, Kansas and stuff like that. It's a little bit harder in that department, but definitely when it's the off season or when I'm home over break, me and my mother love to chef it up and cook up some good stuff for the dad and the sister.
Speaking of being home, you went to Harvard Westlake, and for people listening, Harvard Westlake has an alumni list that's absolutely insane with people like Mark Harmon and Jason Segal, Max Fried went there. So, what is Harvard Westlake to attend, not just from an athletic side, but from an academic side, because it's always rated as one of the best high schools in the country?
I'm very fortunate for my time there because at least academically, it was no joke. It was rigorous. Like they really prepared me and my fellow classmates and anyone else who's ever gone there almost too well for the more rigorous college curriculum that you might see at a school like Dartmouth or some other places. Looking back on it, having done about 4 or 5 years of college work now, it almost felt like the expectations were almost the same in terms of the kind of work I was doing. So it did make it so that my transition into doing college level coursework was definitely a lot smoother for sure. But it was great there. We all worked really hard throughout that whole school day. And high school is a little bit different from college. You take more classes at once. You don't go as deep into each one at the time. At Dartmouth, we took 3 classes at a time. But in high school, you were taking 6 or 7 at a time. It was a lot more to keep track of and manage because you had so many more classes and deadlines to keep track of. So from a personal standpoint, just with like time management and stuff like that, as well as the rigor that the courses had, all of that really combined to shape me kind of into the man I am today and be able to be successful doing some college coursework as well.
Is there a subject or a class that you've taken, whether in high school or college, that has really made you think I might want to look more into this?
It's funny, my dad being an actor and my mom who worked in design for many years, those two artists happened to yield a STEM guy, I guess, a math science guy. My brain kind of works a little more in the logic department. I've always had the theory that if I get like a physics question, I know a few equations, I can maybe figure out the answer as I go. But if I didn't study what happened in Mesopotamia and whatever hundreds, like I'm never going to know that. I'm not just going to pull that out of my, you know what. So definitely the numbers for me. It was statistics because I really was able to kind of draw that connection. I've always been a baseball nut and dive into the numbers and stuff like that. That's always really piqued my interest. And it was just really cool to see that almost come up a little bit adjacent in coursework. So I really, really enjoyed that. And then when I got to Dartmouth, a lot of that statisticky stuff shifted to these programming softwares. Then those programming and computer sciencey things were a little bit more difficult for me. So I steered a little bit away from that, unfortunately. But in terms of that programming kind of stuff, I was always kind of knowing what the right things to put in the program were, but I'd always have like an extra space in front of that semicolon or something. And then I'd get your program's not running right. And so I had a couple times where I'd get frustrated. But definitely with the way my brain works, it's definitely been kind of statistics and stuff like that. And especially being able to draw a connection to baseball, I would say that kind of sparked me the most.
With your love of stats and science, do you dive into the analytics combined with, let's say, the physics of a swing in terms of like moving your hips or hip fluidity, stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's a fine line here because we're kind of in the day and age in baseball where we have kind of that more old school way of playing the game, which is play the game as it is. And then there's a little bit more of the new school side of it where you're playing percents and taking more of a gamble on what pitch someone's going to throw. And now there's biometric data on the way your body moves and the angle at which you're attacking the baseball and things like that. So I think it's super important for there to be a marriage kind of between the bare bones of the game and the way the game was played without all this data. And that can't be lost. And then also using the information we have to our advantage now that there's more advanced analytics out there and things like that. But yeah, I think it's really just about kind of finding the marriage between the two. And you look at the Dodgers, for example. I mean, obviously they have the infinite money glitch right now, but that's an organization that you hear about where they have absolutely perfected the marriage between playing the game as it should be played and blending in those new school analytics. And it can be tough sometimes when you have all this data, all these pitch metric data, like these pitchers. It's very easy for them to get caught up in all these numbers, like induced vertical break on their fastball and their release height and things like that, and how that interacts with the amount of RPMs the ball's spinning out of their hand and things like that, and how that affects movement profile. There's a lot of opportunity for distraction there. So I think it's super important. This is something I'd actually look into doing. Is I think that a very hot job in the streets right now for a lot of major league teams is to kind of have this liaison of sorts to communicate the analytical data from the guys behind the desks that are crunching these numbers in these R&D departments, kind of having a bridge between the front office who's dealing with the analytics and the players, and a point person to explain these analytical things to a Major League Baseball player, a minor league baseball player, in a way that simplifies it for them. Just little things you can say to make a hitter change something minor. So we're right in the middle of it, man. And like the Tampa Bay Rays, they're like the Dodgers in that they really dive hard into the analytics and they play matchups. What they do a great job is they put their players in a position for them to succeed most of the time in terms of matchups. They're not like the Dodgers in that they don't have the payroll that they do. So you're able to see some of these lower market teams really leverage analytics, like the Tampa Bay Rays, like the Cleveland Guardians, and turn that into success as well. So some teams are definitely ahead of it more than others, and it's really starting to come to college baseball as well. So it's super interesting to kind of see that evolve over the last few years as there's been more data available at the college level.
How do you prevent paralysis by analysis with all that data?
It's tricky. You kind of have to have the right perspective on it, in that knowing what works for you. Like there's some people who, when they step into the box, they like to have a little bit more of a clear mind and kind of just see ball, hit ball a little bit, or stick to their approach of maybe chopping the plate in half. And then there's certain pitchers I'll look at and I'm like, you know what? He loves to flip in that 1-0, that 2-1, and that 3-1 slider. He loves to flip that in. So I've never really felt like overwhelmed by some of the information. I tend to be a little bit more cerebral in the way that I play the game and the way that I create my approach and think about what I'm going to do for a matchup against the pitcher. But for some guys, it's a little bit different, and they like to have a little bit less information and just do the bare bones of hitting. That's kind of how some guys thrive more. It really comes down to knowing yourself. And the difficult thing in college baseball is sometimes people don't necessarily know exactly what works best for them. And so that's kind of what the experience is for, and really finding that over your first couple of years of college, or even some of these high schools I know are getting some data now. But it's really about, I would say, knowing yourself and picking and choosing what kind of information that's out there works for you when you look at it, and what kind of might be a little more superfluous.
During a game, do you have a chance to look at like a tablet or an iPad to say, maybe I need to make this adjustment or that adjustment against the pitcher if you're going to see him a second time?
In college, no, I haven't seen that, at least when I was at Dartmouth or this year at Houston. No, like in-game video that we would look at. When a new pitcher comes in, we have like a binder with every pitcher in it that kind of shows their heat maps of where they throw most of their pitches and where damage is done, and strike percentages and velocities and horizontal movements and stuff like that. So we have that to our knowledge before going in for an AB. But as far as video during the game, if we're in like a series, we'll watch video with our coaches before or after the game, depending on certain things we're looking at. We might want to look at, does he backpick a lot, stuff like that. But as far as like analyzing your own swing, we kind of do that before or after the game, depending on that. So no tablets in the dugout. Like you see some of these big leaguers, Ohtani will rip a triple down the line and then do a hook slide on a sac fly. And next thing you know, he's staring at a big tablet in the dugout. And it's definitely not something that has been going on in game like that, but we definitely do some stuff before and after.
For you, as let's say a fan and also as a player, since you mentioned Otani, can you kind of put more into words of just how unique of a player he is?
He's a unicorn, right? And the things that he's able to do at the level he's able to do it, at the quantity of things that he's doing, you just can't put words to it. I had a chance to pitch a little bit over the summer and summer ball, just kind of filling in some innings. And I'll tell you, it is not easy to be pitching max effort. And then next thing you know, you're on deck right when you get the third out. But as an Angels fan, I'll never forget walking out of my English class for junior year and boom, I get the ping on my phone. Shohei Ohtani is signed with the Los Angeles Angels. And I think I let out the biggest scream in the middle of the hallway, like I think I've ever done in my life. Class had just got out. I get a bunch of looks. I run to the bathroom. There's no way. So I, as an Angels fan who watches a lot of Angels baseball year in and year out, was really able to watch Ohtani in his years as the Angels. And now, obviously, he's getting the light shown on him more than ever now on national television and stuff. It's very easy to see his highlights and things, but it's absolutely amazing. He's a freak of nature. He's super whippy. He hits the ball hard. He throws the ball hard. He runs really fast. He really checks all the boxes. And it's really been transformational for the sport as well, because when Ohtani burst onto the scene and he was playing under Mike Scioscia for the Angels early on, they did a whole thing with him where, oh, like if he's going to pitch on Friday, we'll give him a day off on Thursday to get ready for a start on Friday. And then maybe he won't hit while he's pitching on Friday. And then we'll give him another day after on Saturday to recover. And then he'll be back in the lineup on Sunday. And then that quickly through Brad Ausmus and Joe Madden, who kind of went in there and they kind of said, you know what? He knows he can do it. Like he's been asking to hit and pitch at the same time. Like, let's just do it. And then you roll that out and you see it's become a multiple time MVP winner. So it's been really, really cool. And it's definitely changed youth baseball for sure, because kind of when I was coming up in the mid 2010s, developing as a middle schooler and early high schooler, there was a little bit of you kind of got to pick a side. You got to really dive into hitting. You really got to really dive into pitching, because you don't want to split your focus and you might be getting distracted and things like that if you're trying to have too much on your plate. But Ohtani coming up and being the superstar that he is really kind of debunked that. So I'm really excited. We're seeing more two-way players get drafted as two-way players. We're seeing a lot more at the college level, and we were fortunate enough to have Malachi Lott on the Houston team, who was one of the semifinalists for the two-way player of the year. So I got to see him drop his slot from the left side and get some nasty swing and misses on his slider. And then 2 innings later, he's hitting a 400-foot homer to cushion our lead a little bit. So it's definitely transformed the game. It's transforming youth baseball. And I only think it's a blessing for our sport.
Being in LA and with the Dodgers being as popular as they are, how did you end up an Angels fan?
I don't know, maybe when I was about 4, 5, or 6. That's kind of when my dad really got me into baseball when I was younger. I was like, I don't want to use this glove. It's bulky on my hand. I can't squeeze it. Like all this stuff. I was dabbling as a 5-year-old or whatever. But there was this weird deal where you had to have Time Warner Cable to watch the Dodgers. So the only thing that was really on our TV for a little bit was the Angels. And I'm honestly a little bit disappointed because I feel like I got lied to. My 5-year-old self watching the Los Angeles Angels being raised in the city limits of LA. I'm like, oh, great. I got 2 teams to choose for. And the red team is the one on my screen. So I'm from Los Angeles. I'll be an Angels fan. They're from Los Angeles too. Come to find out, I'm about 35 minutes closer to Dodger Stadium than I am to Angel Stadium. And not only is Angel Stadium not in Los Angeles, it's not even Los Angeles County. I do feel like I got a little bit lied to and stuff like that early on, but I'm not one to shift over. I'm a loyal Angels fan, and I've been watching them ever since. I will say it's been a little disappointing hearing my spoiled Dodgers fans talk about how great they are and everything, but I'm sticking to the Angels through and through, and I'm just counting down the days, the months, the years, the decades until they bring home a title. I was a little bit too young in 2002 to really be invested in their title there over the Giants, but It's been a lot of superstar talent for the Angels, and they just quite haven't been able to put it together. Hopefully they can get something going here, but I almost feel like I was tricked by the Los Angeles in front of the Angels there, not really being from LA. But once you pick a team, you got to stick with it. So I'm riding with the Angels.
You mentioned that your dad was a bit of a baseball fan. Did you guys bond over other sports as well when you were growing up?
My dad always loved baseball the most. He grew up playing stickball. He grew up in Manhattan in New York City, and he always grew up playing stickball and playing on these concrete fields and sliding in his jeans and tearing them up and stuff. So he's always kind of had baseball as a passion. But you see nowadays, dads are a little bit overbearing and overcoaching their kids in youth sports to the point where they're shoving it down their throat so much and expecting good results out of their kids to the point where they kind of burn out and fizzle out kind of towards the high school level, getting into college. But my dad was never like that. He was really good at exposing me to many different things, even not in sports. So the first thing we did was he bought me a glove and we started throwing the ball back and forth. And he also made sure to get me into soccer growing up and playing a little flag football and a little basketball. But it was more for me personally. I kind of really just fell in love with the game of baseball. And I played a little bit of soccer here and there, but especially in Southern California, there's a little bit less of an emphasis on playing multiple sports than when I learned about kind of these guys coming out of the Northeast that are playing basically 3 sports a year, and they're built a little bit differently. But he was very, very, very good at not really pushing anything too hard, but really just kind of putting me in a position early on in my life to really find what my passions were. And I'm thankful for that he was able to put me in that position. And I just took baseball and rode with it.
With your dad being an actor growing up, and this could be with the benefit of hindsight, has there ever been anybody that's come over to the house that you look back at and you go, holy smokes, that person was here?
I mean, at the time, I maybe didn't value it as much, but one of his movies that he did early on was in the 70s or the 80s was Cruising, and he did that with Al Pacino. So he's lived with Al Pacino a few times in Malibu after they did some movies and shows together. So I've been fortunate enough to see you call him Uncle Al a few times over the last few years. And he's a great guy, and being a little bit older, and he's one of my dad's good friends and speak very highly of each other. And they were playing paddle tennis in Malibu in the 80s and in the 90s and stuff like that. So I would probably say that's number one kind of wow face that I've seen. But my dad has been very successful in theater and TV and some movies now. And he's gotten an opportunity to work with some really cool people. And I don't think anyone beats Uncle Al for sure.
Didn't have Al Pacino as Uncle Al on my bingo card.
I like to joke around that my godfather's the godfather. People usually get a kick out of that, but he's a great guy, and he and my dad have a great relationship.
You mentioned a little bit about this earlier, but if you don't mind going into a little bit more detail, what was the transition going from LA, the bright lights, to rural New Hampshire?
It was a shocker. It really was. I mean, I didn't really see snowfall until I got there, and I'll tell you what, the athletic department gave us these big parka jackets, and I looked at it and I said, "Is it supposed to go down to your knees like this?" And the Northeast guys were like, "Dude, trust me, you're gonna need it." And see people putting all these boots on, and I was out there walking in my Converse to class in February, like, I don't need boots. They paved the sidewalks. I'll be fine. And boom, next thing you know, there's ice that was there that clearly was not there according to my eyes. And boom, you're fanning over tea kettle and landing on your finger and bruising it. So I immediately went to Amazon and got me a pair of Timberland boots to make sure that didn't happen again. You can't be missing any games due to cold weather incidents. But it was nice. I'm fortunate enough throughout my baseball career to have traveled and played in so many nooks and crannies of this country, whether it be the Northeast, down in Florida, now in Texas, the Pacific Northwest, and California, Arizona. And it was charming because the town of Hanover, New Hampshire was about 3 hours, give or take, north of Boston. So you're really like not near that much. But that was kind of what was charming and appealing about it. The town is the college, and maybe it was a little annoying at times only having Domino's pizza as the only thing open after 9 p.m. when you really want something good to eat at about 10 p.m. But I really enjoyed it there. It was rugged and the nature was really beautiful. The air was clean. Like maybe they're all cliches, but there was something really charming about it. And I'll definitely remember my time there as one that was very different and cold, that's for sure. But I think it was a little bit more of a seamless transition than I thought. Still the same game. You're still taking classes. You still have these great teammates that you're around. And that being kind of my first breath of college, it was really nice living with your teammates. And when you're in college and you're living with these people and you're practicing with them, you're basically with these people for every waking hour of the day. You feel like after 2 weeks, you really know these guys for about 2 months. And so I think that we had a very good team culture over there and we all grew really close, especially because there were not a ton of distractions in terms of like city stuff, not many places to go around and really kind of taking it in together. So I'll absolutely cherish my time from there.
I used to live in Connecticut, and I do not miss the New England blizzard.
I don't know about being there for a majority of my life in terms of the weather, but it was a 3 to 4 year period where I can look back on it and be absolutely glad that I did it. And there's nothing like getting up at 5:20 in the morning and walking in feels like -20 with 5 layers on to go to morning conditioning at the indoor facility a couple times a week. So that maybe I won't miss, but there were definitely a lot of times in the late spring where we hop in the lake and jump on a paddleboard. And those are just things that you don't really get at a lot of places. So I'm definitely going to take that away. But like I said, I will not miss the 5:30 in the morning walks and feels like -20 to get to the indoor practice facility. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I don't miss the cold either. I'll take a little bit warmer summer over the 24-inch blizzard at 6 o'clock at night.
And then on the contrary, I mean, getting to Houston, it was about as polar opposite from Dartmouth weather as you can get. Being in Southern California, I've played in a lot of heat, and in Arizona, I've played in 110-degree weather before, but there's something in the air here, man. I don't know what it is. When it's 85 degrees out, it feels like it's about 100 and sticky, and the air is thick and stuff. So even just coming to Texas, weirdly, it was almost as different a transition with the humidity here as it was kind of going up to the cold in New Hampshire.
And with the humidity, oftentimes they can play all kinds of tricks with the baseball. They can just knock it right down.
When those baseballs are moving, sometimes that thick air steps in and says, you know what, I don't feel like giving you that double today. I'll let you fly out to the warning track instead. So it gets sweaty on that field. It gets high. You hydrate more. It's a little bit of a beast down here in Texas, but definitely gets you in shape.
Just because you played in some different weather at Dartmouth, even though you had played in LA and Arizona, how long of a transition did it take you to get used to playing in the Texas heat?
I mean, we got here right in the middle of August, and I'll never forget. I was moving into an Airbnb like right away before we settled into my apartment, and I remember just trying to get the lockbox open for the Airbnb. And 10 minutes later, I look at myself in the mirror in the apartment, and I'm absolutely dripping in sweat. But it's really just kind of keeping your body temperature cooled down. I kind of figured out you got to splash a little bit of water on your face and maybe do the cold towel and just kind of doing everything you can to stay dry and keep your body temperature down and regulate your breathing, I think has been the biggest things. But after having played in high 30s, low 40s weather in New Hampshire, it is a heck of a lot easier for you to get your body ready to play in this heat. I'm about 5 to 7 throws in when I'm getting my throwing in before the game, and I'm feeling ready to go in this heat. It's easy for the body in the heat. It takes about double or triple that when you're trying to get your arm ready in the cold, but it's definitely a little easier to get your body ready. But just kind of doing those things, like I said, and regulating your body temperature, breathing, things like that, I think has been the biggest things.
Aside from, let's say, LA, Houston, and New Hampshire, where has been your favorite place to go play?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I will say recently it was Oklahoma State. And there was just something about walking onto that field, kind of like I said with Globe Life Field, and kind of seeing the way that stadium is built that just felt so big league, AAA field. And from like a breathtaking standpoint, this has got to be the best college field I've ever played at. I immediately went on my phone and made a list of every single college field I've played at and loosely ranked them, and I had Oklahoma State at the top, and it was absolutely gorgeous. But on the flip side of that, I think I would also say I played 3 years of collegiate summer ball in Montpelier, Vermont, which is an hour away from Dartmouth, and our classes kind of ended in early June at Dartmouth. So I was able to just drive up an hour to Montpelier, Vermont. And the absolute antithesis of Oklahoma State, it was this very rugged, Vermonty kind of feel and field with an old wooden grandstand. And no knock on Vermont, there's maybe not a ton going on there. So they definitely showed up and showed out for our Vermont Mountaineers summer games. Well, let's go to a Mountaineers game. So there was like 1,000, 2,000 fans there sometimes, and embracing the weirdness of playing baseball in Vermont, and absolutely love summer ball. Some of my best memories will be coming from collegiate summer ball for sure. And I've been fortunate enough to have 4 seasons of that over the summer. And I think the best part of it is really just as a concept, it's super interesting summer ball because you're playing for 2 months with maybe 1 or 2 other guys from your school, sometimes no one from your school, and then just a bunch of kids from a bunch of other crazy schools, crazy parts of the country, even out of the country as well. And you're with these people like on buses for 6 hours going down to Martha's Vineyard, and then you got to hop on a ferry, or you're driving to the northwest corner of Massachusetts and North Adams to go play the Steeple Cats, and just kind of sitting on the bus and being at the game for a while with these guys. You really grow close to them, and then you snap your fingers and it's August, and it's like, dang, this is really over. Like, these were my best friends for about 2 months, and I'll be lucky if I get to see 2 or 3 of them ever again, right? Because everyone kind of goes their separate ways for the spring, goes back to their schools, and goes and plays in different summer teams or graduates, starts the next chapter of their life. So summer ball is super interesting, and I'll definitely cherish my times in Vermont, and on the flip side, having that big league feel at Oklahoma State. So I guess I'll qualify by saying those 2.
When it comes to summer ball, how are teams able to gel so quickly because it's such a condensed season?
I think because it's so condensed, there's not as many off days, right? And not everyone has a car, and you're living with host families and things. So even when you have an off day, like, and when we're in Vermont, what are we going to do in Vermont on an off day? We go get a couple of guys together, go see some watering holes, maybe go to like a maple factory of sorts. So I really think it's super easy to come close to these people when you're spending 8+ hours of the day with them per day, basically. So I would just attribute it to the quantity of hours that we kind of accumulate together, whether it be on the bus, whether it be during BP. There's a lot of downtime in these games. We don't just show up an hour before the game, get ready and go. Hang out for a little bit, get the body ready, stretch, hit BP, and then the other team's taking BP. A lot of games at hacky sack, a lot of social strategy games like Mafia getting played on the bus and stuff that'll keep us entertained. And if you're not open about yourself and extending an olive branch to your teammates at summer ball, you're really closing yourself out of a valuable experience. So I think really just being yourself, spending a bunch of time with these guys, it really has this transformational effect where you feel like you've been with some of these guys for a whole school year, and it's only been a couple months.
How good are your hacky sack skills?
Oh, pretty good. Now that I've gotten about 4 years of reps in it, we try to just keep it up as long as we can. And we've had some generational runs and come up with some new adjacent games to play with it. But baseball players have absolutely no problem coming up with little games or doing little things to kill a little bit of time, stay on our feet, stay active a little bit, train that hand-eye or foot-eye in this case. But they've definitely gotten sharper after the amount of reps in Vermont, that's for sure.
Speaking of hand-eye, according to the media guide, I was reading you have a hidden talent of juggling. How did that come about?
Weirdly, it came out in youth baseball from the ages of about 7 to 12, kind of that little league age. And our head coach, who was one of the fathers of the kids on our team, he went to clown school and was doing some circus stuff along with acting. And so one day when we were about 10, he started killing time in practice, teaching us how to juggle. And we all kind of eventually got it. And then we had this run that we were going on in the all-stars of our little league, and it was almost superstitious. We would create like a 5-minute window before our games to do juggling. And you just see a bunch of 5 foot tall 10-year-olds doing juggling before the game. They're probably like, what's going on? But we kind of just bought into it and it regulated us. And hand-eye's kind of always been one of the skills that I've acquired that is at the forefront of my game. And so I always make sure to try to come up with some variations and really train that hand-eye every now and then. So I'll grab 3 balls and I'll juggle them around when I have some dead time, or juggle them off a wall, or try some different variations on the theme. And it kind of started early on in baseball, and I rode with it.
You could have a future with Savannah Bananas.
Potentially, we'll see. What they're doing is absolutely unbelievable. They're selling out football stadiums. They're putting on this production. It almost feels like Harlem Globetrotters adjacent, but the game's not fixed for the Bananas to win every time. So you don't really know what you're going to get from a result standpoint. But I think that'd be super fun. You see guys on stilts, you see guys doing backflips and throwing balls behind their backs and stuff. Another weird thing I'm able to do is throw with both hands pretty well. So maybe there's a future there for the Bananas, maybe throwing with both hands. I don't know. But what they're doing is absolutely pretty cool, and definitely a little circusy for sure, in a good way.
With being able to throw with both hands, and I know you've dabbled a little in pitching, have you ever thought about being a switch pitcher?
I mean, I've thought about it. It's more wishful thinking. I could throw about like max 80 miles an hour with my left hand, which I'm not selling myself short. That's definitely impressive and something to throw proud about. But I kind of feel like a high schooler on the mound lefty, and then I can pump it up into the low 90s righty. So there's a little bit of a disparity there, but it's kind of more a fun little side hobby that I have rather than something I feel like could be implemented in a game. But I have always said, knock on wood, my right arm has always been healthy. I've never really had any problems with it, but I've always said if that thing ever blows out, we need that bat in the lineup still. I'm putting on that lefty first base glove and making it work. I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you, the only guy that needs Tommy John surgery that can still play.
Exactly. I've never had to use that yet. Like I said, knock on wood, the right arm's been healthy for 24 years now. But if and when the time comes and that thing goes on me, I'm ready to pivot.
Speaking of a little bit of looking ahead, is your goal to play pro baseball, or when your time playing college ball is done, are you going to be finished?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I mean, I'd love to just play baseball as long as I can, whether that's a professional opportunity or maybe playing overseas or something. That's something that will come when the opportunity presents itself, if it does. And then if not, I definitely want to work in baseball to some degree, kind of like I said earlier when we were talking about how the game's gotten a little more analytical. There's a lot of job opportunities out there for people who really know the game, who can interpret the analytical stuff for the guys behind the desks and relay that in an effective manner to the guys on the field. So I definitely think there's opportunities there. I'm an absolute infield ground ball nut as well. So maybe specializing in that with some guys later on is something I'd be interested in, but kind of just play it by ear, see what opportunities, if any, present themselves and roll with whatever I got.
When you look back on your baseball career, let's say 10, 15 years down the road, what will you say that baseball gave you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, the world. Everything about this game, I feel like, has positively affected me in my everyday life. And the cliche you hear about a lot is baseball is a game of failure, and really teaches you how to deal with not succeeding, because it's one of those sports by the numbers, not succeeding more than you are succeeding. And when you're doing that, you're technically playing at a Hall of Fame level. So in terms of regulating my emotions, I would say is probably the biggest thing. When you play baseball, you cannot get caught up and frazzled if something doesn't go your way. If you take a pitch that you think is outside and the umpire calls it a strike, it does you absolutely no good to get frazzled by it and make a scene out of it. And what that's going to do for you is not help you at all. It's only going to keep you straight away from really what your objective and your plan is. So I would say the biggest takeaway is probably the ability to adapt, the ability to make decisions on the fly. And baseball is not a fast game. There's a lot of start-stop, but it gets really, really fast in the moment, and it speeds up in the moment. And that's something that I don't think it's talked about enough. Like, you might not get a ground ball out there for 7 innings. And then the next thing you know, you're in a double runner rundown between second and third, and you've got to make a good advised decision at the right time and kind of quick in the moment. So I would say adaptability, being able to work on the fly and regulate emotions are definitely a few of the biggest takeaways for me that I've definitely seen affect me positively in other parts of my life.
Tyler, I want to thank you so much for joining the I Play 2 podcast today. It was great to hear about your time growing up in LA, playing for Dartmouth, currently playing for Houston, your love of food. Thank you so much. Continued success both on and off the field. Take care, man.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. This was super fun. Best of luck. Take care.